Welcome to day 15 of A Screenwriter's Journey. I'm thinking it maybe is a screenplay's journey also. Anyways, so we're in the process. I'm in the process of going back and doing I wouldn't say a rewrite, but doing quite a bit of work on the early part of the script because I most likely have hit something of a stumbling block, or maybe I feel like I really need to make sure the first part is right before I continue. I know I've spoken before, and I'm not the first one, about the vomit draft that people say, oh, you've got to write from fade in to fade out. You've got to go all the way through, then you know you've got a story. I don't know that I've ever done that, and I don't know that I ever will, and I don't even know that I ever could. Because it's like if you're going on a trip and you know you're lost, do you just keep driving expecting you'll magically find your way? Maybe you will. But that's the difference. um, so I'm jumping ahead pretty close here. So they're on their way up, and I'm just tweaking the dialogue during the drive up. We've got, of course, Lexi and Holly in one car, and then we've got the three kids in the other car. And I call them kids. I hope that's not offending anyone listening or the people in the movie. Even in the script, I occasionally refer to them as kids mostly because it doesn't take as many letters. And letters and words and spacing is always at a premium. So they're up here at the race car place, and I think I'm just going through and, as I said, just tweaking some of this dialogue. I'll let you know when I find it. I hope I'm in it. So Gary has, pretty impressed, really, although, of course, he won't say it, that Holly has this car. Not that it's like a super race car, but it's obvious that he wouldn't mind driving fast. And so that sort of works into the race car driving, which, of course, is not going to work out for him. Probably, if you've been watching along, you've already seen me write this, so you kind of know what's going to happen. And I just did a couple little things in the racing, not really montage, but series of shots I know I didn't fundamentally change how it ends because that's how it is going to end, but I'm just tweaking things here. Correcting mistakes, maybe trying to make it more visually appealing. And so afterwards, Gary has not gotten anything out of Lexi in terms of what's going on, and he's obviously frustrated. But knowing that it's her birthday, which really, now that I think about it, doesn't really play much into the story. There's no cakes and any of that, but it's obvious that he wishes that she would tell him, but as he says, I'm not going to say anything. You'll tell me when you're ready. Gary assumes, of course, that Holly is also a championship axe thrower. Paul calls and tells Holly that things have changed. So this isn't really like a break into two or anything in terms of act, but it is going to shake things up a bit, which of course you always want to do. You don't want to lay out an agenda and then have that agenda happen just as it's been laid out, or what's the fun in that? So they did do the race cars. Things probably turned out different than many of them thought, and now, boom, they've kind of got a little topsy-turvy action here. But the saving grace is that Holly invites Gary to go with her and Lexi, she and Lexi. And then Gary, being the rivalry, the twins rivalry, he tells Larry to make sure to keep up this time. Of course, Larry had nothing to do with it last time, but that's just something that they do, twins. And then I thought it would be interesting, which I'm sure I said the first time, to go to Larry and Abby to wonder what they're thinking, what Abby knows that he doesn't. And then Abby drops the witness protection program bomb. I didn't really think we needed to hear anything in the car between the other three, so let's get right up to Eagle Creek Escape. Again, if you've been watching, you've already seen this, and let me just see what I'm doing here. Holly immediately, of course, takes control. She's going to switch up where they're staying, what's going on, and of course the three wonder what's going on, because even though Gary was in the car, it's obvious that Holly and or Lexi have not told them anything, or not told them everything, because Abby is a little hesitant to, and Holly isn't sure that it's a good idea. Although, having said that, I realize that Gary does know, and it's Larry who does not know. And so now, of course, he's thinking, did Abby not tell me, or did she not know either? Now, this is a key point, and I'm sure I've mentioned this before. This is basically very close to the Act 1 break. Very key point in that we've sort of seen Gary, of the two boys, not really be the aggressor, but maybe a little more macho-ish and more of a kind of a tough guy. He doesn't really joke around, that sort of thing. And so this comes to the point, I need to turn off my messages, that when Lexi says my mom's in there, that sort of is like, whoa. And as I write here, Larry's knees literally buckle. And he does find out that he's the only one who doesn't know. So I'm thinking, when I first wrote this, or when I was thinking of the idea, the natural thing is Mr. Valiant Gary saying, oh, I'll go with you and everything will be fine, and I'll be there, I'll be your support system. Like sort of he offered to go over the night before, and Abby said, no need, I've got this, or whatever. So as you see, I'm also working on some story bits there about the timeline of when the mom was going to arrive, got pushed up, and so Larry is really feeling lost, and now Lexi is going to try to reassure them that everything will be fine. So back to the point of Gary and Larry. Larry can see, can sense, can see, can feel, can hear that Gary is hesitant, and maybe he's never really mentioned it to the girls, but he knows maybe in the heart of hearts that Gary isn't necessarily the bravest guy in the world. So how is that going to play out? How is it going to manifest itself? Abby comes right out and says, do you want Gary to go with you? And then we see, probably not quite for the first time, but maybe the first time it's been written out in plain English, that Gary is not entirely comfortable with this. So I'm playing with that dialogue to give Gary the opportunity to go, to make up a decision, to make his decision. Larry sees this, and being the brother, being the twin especially, he is at first kind of maybe surprised that his brother doesn't go, and then he's concerned. So his first line is, it's safe, right? And Gary takes that the wrong way, thinking that Larry assumes that Gary maybe is a coward and will only go if it's safe. But Holly doesn't really want to, get bogged down in this. She needs to get out of there, so she needs to hand Lexi off and go for it. So now I'm playing with a dialogue here of Gary not wanting to. Well, at first I was thinking he doesn't want to let on really about his nerves, but then I realized, well, on the trip up, they probably. Holly could have told him that, yeah, it's going to be fine because there's two U.S. Marshals in there, and So there's no reason. This is sort of giving him an excuse for not going in because he doesn't really want to meet her mom. And maybe he's convincing himself it's not a matter of being scared or chicken or anything, but hey, everything's going to be fine. I would just be it would be weird if I was in there. And so he elects not to go, and not 100% sure what the others think about that, but he assumes that they don't think that he's doing it because he's scared. Man, that was a long train of thought. Sentence was probably 300 words long. So when Larry hears this, how's he going to react? Is he going to say, oh, all right, I'll go with Abby and Gary? Again, if you've read this, if you've been watching, you know what happens. But maybe I changed it up this time, so maybe you don't. I'm just reading here. So what Larry does here is not necessarily to get back or to, to make his brother look bad or anything. He is just thinking that it's kind of the right thing to do, maybe to make Lexi feel a little more comfortable. I don't think he even considers it being brave or being noble or a gentleman, maybe to a tiny extent, but it's not like he's got a secret crush on her, which of course would be the typical thing. And then he would do something heroic and then they would end up together and Gary would be on the outs or whatever. And has that ever been done before? Only a million times. So I'm trying to avoid that. And I think you'll see as it goes on kind of the relationships, and hopefully it works. And you can tell me if it does when you see the movie. So when Larry does decide to go with Lexi, Gary is not thrilled because in his eyes, in his view, oh my gosh, he's trying to upstage me, trying to make me look like a creep. Why is he really doing that? But he's not going to say anything because that's not how guys are. He's just going to see what plays out. So when Holly finds out that Larry's going, obviously this isn't part of the plan. But as there will be two U.S. Marshals in there, she just comes out and says, don't say anything. Okay. So now they're going up there. And so this was a sticking point, this part about would Holly go in? Would she not? Would that be part of the assignment? Does she purposely not want to? And so then I'm playing around with this dialogue because Lexi assumes that she's going in. But when Holly doesn't answer, then I'm playing with a dialogue still that Holly drops this bomb that she's leaving. And she's not just leaving, she's leaving now. And now, I don't know if I keep all of this dialogue here, but I found out, again, playing with geography, there could be an airfield anywhere in this world. And so that's what's going to happen. She's going to go to the airfield, and then it's going to take her to this JPAT, and I'm still not sure what that stands for, but that is a U.S. Marshals thing in Alexandria, Louisiana, and there actually is one there. And then she'll catch like a real flight to Miami. Now, I thought it was interesting. I don't know, looking back or what. I changed that dialogue so Lexi says Aunt Holly. And so again, maybe a little tug at the heartstrings. And of course, as far as she knows, she's been her aunt, so she's used to saying that. So she's not just going to call her Holly. But that's just like one more little poke that I think the actress could use who plays Holly to pull at her heartstrings just a tiny bit maybe. And here I go. What am I changing? Maybe I'm putting in a last name. I thought I already had his last name in there. So basically Holly is telling the others that, hey, I'm leaving, but don't worry because Paul's coming. And let's see if I add this line right here. He'll take good care of you. Oh, look at that. Not better than you. So again, it's just another brick in the wall, as Pink Floyd says, or another brick out of the wall. Um, when Holly hears that, of course, it gets to her, and she's a tough lady. She's not like super duper fast and furious tough, but she doesn't want the others to see that is really affecting her because, she's been waiting all this time. She's made her decision. She's on the plane. She wants to get out of here. So key point, I think, is that, turning point, obviously, because when I was thinking about it, she is the protagonist, and so she has to take an active role in the Act 1 turning point. You think of Marty McFly. Well, is that a good one? He jumps in the DeLorean. Obviously, Luke deciding to go with Ben Kenobi and being trained. Pick your poison in terms of turning point. So Holly actively is making this decision to move on. I guess we all kind of know it's probably not going to happen, but she's making that active decision to leave this world behind and go to a new one. Of course, the trick is, as you know, if again you've been watching this, it's not going to quite go like that. But so this is a turning point in that what's going to happen in the cabin, but it's also a turning point in that Holly is, as far as she knows, closing the chapter of this, closing the book on this chapter, whatever that saying is, and moving on. So that's what is all being set up here. So Larry wants to make sure that Lexi's really on board. Lexi is still thinking about Holly, and in they go. So Rachel, and I know I've said all this, but since I'm rewriting it, I might as well say it again. I thought it would be interesting if Rachel didn't look super bedraggled and that she had literally just been out of prison for a few days, but she's obviously, had a makeover or whatever and looks good. And so, when I guess it's kind of human nature, when you see an attractive person, you immediately will tend to like them rather than not like them. So I thought that would be interesting for Lexi to immediately see her mom and is like, wow, she's kind of attractive for a mom. Not that Holly isn't, but Holly's not her mom. And then, of course, Rachel showers her, with compliments, gives her a hug, trying immediately to get on her good side, which I think is natural. And Holly is not totally sold on that. She's kind of reserved. Rachel sees Larry, assumes that he's her boyfriend, Lexi's boyfriend, of course. As I mentioned the first time when I was writing this and commentating on it, I thought it would be interesting not to linger in the cabin with Lexi and Rachel and friends, but go and see what else is happening. Because after all, I keep reminding myself this is Holly's story, and it's sort of, it's not obviously not Thelma and Louise by any means, and I don't intend it to be or pretend it is, but it is sort of a female lead story, and their stories sort of, they start together, they're going to go apart. Obviously they're going to come together at some point. We don't know how far, but I definitely want to keep Holly central in this, being a protagonist. Hopefully she's being proactive rather than reactive. So originally I think I had the scene in the cabin, but now she is literally just driving away and talking to Paul and finding out that he's a little late because he had headwinds. And Holly comes back to say, I'm going to stay here, because she probably feels that Uh-oh. We've got tornado warnings. Ooh, all right, I'm going to stop recording for now, and maybe something juicy will happen. It's the next day and nothing substantial happened. We got about 5 hours of tornado warnings, but no destruction. Back at the script, what happened yesterday? Okay, so um, Holly's leaving and she's checking to make sure that Paul is going to be there. Holly's feeling a little guilty, as we saw yesterday in the commentary, same day of writing. And now Paul is introducing the idea to Holly that, hey, maybe you will be more comfortable staying. And I believe I did this to give Holly that initial test of, how much is she looking forward to the new work? How much does she want to put this behind her? And how much she feels obligated to kind of see this through, even though her work is officially finished. So what I thought here is, what I'm writing for Holly's line is, would it feel like, so to speak, she was babysitting, which she's been doing for these many years, if she stuck around and it was like checking up on these two agents. And so that is sort of like an excuse that she uses to just leave, maybe to convince herself to leave. So that's kind of what I'm playing with here in this dialogue. And then, of course, there could be repercussions because someday they may not trust her, or, whatever. So that's kind of what I'm trying to get across here. So she's gone. Now, we don't know what's going on in this other cabin, and sometimes it's more interesting to look at things from another person's perspective, which is the case here. And so what I'm thinking is, what's really going through Gary's mind at this point? And I've had to pass through the screenplay once, and I think I had a little more on the nose. So now I'm coming back and hopefully making it a little more subtle. Although, he's saying, like, I guess someone his age would, pretty much what's on his mind. He doesn't sugarcoat things a lot. So he's maybe saying what the audience is feeling or thinking. It'd be interesting to know at this point, what do they think of Holly? Are they upset with her for leaving? Do they think, she's just in this for her career, she's fed up with this? Or do they know deep down, or maybe not even deep down, that she's going to come back? And then Abby is kind of subtly, in her way, when she says, I should have gone with them, what she's really saying to Gary is, you should have gone with them. And in case he doesn't understand that, she gives him that line of, any regrets. Gary, not being one to admit that he's done something wrong to anyone, let alone himself, immediately answers no, and then kind of couches his response. And now it's funny how you can write something, you go, oh, that's good, and then literally 5 minutes later you go, no, that's not very good, I'm going to kind of change things. So this is maybe a little more subtle. She's not saying anything about she should have gone with him, but what am I doing here? I've got a line of dialogue with no dialogue underneath it. So maybe at this point I'm thinking, does she need to say anything? Sometimes, of course, less is more. Often less is more when you're writing. And that was the end of the day. I'm right in the middle of this scene. I probably ran out of time because I had to go to work or I had to go to sleep or something. But yeah, that's how we're leaving it for day 15. And right in the middle of the scene gives you impetus to come back the next day and button that scene up or button it down. I'm not sure which. But anyways, Thanks again for watching and for listening. I hope this continues to be as enjoyable for you as it is for me. We'll see you tomorrow.